Today's episode is brought to you by
The Way. It's high noon.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to High Noon Podcast, the competitive Overwatch podcast. I am your host, Blevins. With me, as always, is Buffalo Bills superfan, Deathblow. What's up, buddy? He's so enthralled with the Bills that he forgot to unmute his mic.
I am. Listen, we've got a lot of new audio toys. I'm blaming you.
We do.
But yeah, listen, if you're watching and you can see me, you'll know it's playoff time. And that my Bills are in it, and I'm going to lose hats. I'm wearing three different hats right now.
Don't talk about it. Playoffs? You kidding
I'm talking about them.
Playoffs?
Talking about them, Blevins. We're there. I can't jinx anything. We're in, and we're just going to have to beat up on the Houston Texans this week. My goal is to make it long enough that we play against the Baltimore Ravens, however long that needs to be. It could be next week, but I just want Thornrain to have to watch that game and go, oh, we beat both of those teams. Well, they're not in the playoffs. That's all I'm asking for out of the playoffs this year. But no, in all seriousness, I'm super excited, super pumped, happy it's here, and glad I don't have to sit through another meaningless, we've already clinched and can't change our standing game,
Right,
where we play backups and get crushed by the Jets. Because it didn't matter. But man, hard to watch that.
Yeah, it didn't matter, but it still feels bad that it happened.
Right. Yeah, I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that.
We lost.
Even the scoreboard of it after the fact.
We'll look back in years to come and be like, ew, we lost that game. Ew. But yeah, definitely a good time to be a Bills fan, and it's maybe a good time to be a High Noon Podcast fan because we've got some fancy schmancy new audio toys. And as you may have heard at the top of the episode, I am restraining myself to not just turn this show into nothing but a soundboard show. But I do have.
I've got a couple of things at my disposal.
Okay, that's as much as I'm going to do, unless it's really funny for me to do it. But with that, if something is wrong, I'm apologizing in advance if something goes horribly wrong, or if it seems like something should be played and you don't hear it. Let us know on Discord. Let me know on Discord so that I can fix it for later. If something's like super, super loud or you can't hear it, let me know. We took some extra time at the beginning of the show to test the audio and not just mess around with the sounds and stuff. It was definitely that. It was definitely not just me doing stupid Star Wars voices the whole time. But so if something's wrong, let us know. But let's jump into it because we just took our holiday break, but now we're back for the preseason. But before we do that, let's talk about what we did last week. Deathblow, anything fun and exciting for you over the holiday break?
Is there anything years in the making I was able to get accomplished since last we recorded? I bought my computer.
Woo!
I ordered everything. I obviously don't have it yet. I'm really, really pumped though. Any longtime listeners, you'll remember, okay, this didn't used to exist, right? There was a time when this wasn't a thing, and I'm touching my beard. We started a little thing called No Shave Till BlizzCon. And it took me 2 years to get to BlizzCon. And at that time, I made a decision to postpone getting the gaming PC to be able to afford the trip, which took like over a year to save. So I've been like putting off and wanting to build and regretting not building and all these things, my PC for a while. And I had just the worst string of good luck or the best string of bad luck. And it gave
that
me
is accurate.
Just real quick, bought a new car less than 2 weeks later. Some old man hit it. And so it was rough, but anyways, it all said at the end of the day, I ended up with a little extra cash. And it was able to put me close enough to where I'm just jumping off the cliff and putting everything on the credit card and trusting that we're going to get there. So, it's involving some help from the podcast listeners. We're going to use a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of the Patreon funds to help me get it finished. And because I really do want to make a lot more YouTube content, both
Mm-hmm.
for Overwatch, Overwatch League, and other games in general. So if you're a fan of ours, keep an eye on all Blevins' shows, YouTube's. If I make something for like TFT, I'll probably put it there, or something along those lines. I'll probably be starting my own YouTube channel. And I also really do want to attack TikTok with it once I'm able to really make videos. Instagram, I don't know all the different. I've not used many of those apps as a user, but as a creator, I might look into some of them.
Okay, Zoomer.
Oh, yes, Zoomer confirmed. But yeah, so anyways, we're really excited. So thank you to patrons, everything like that, for helping out with that. Also, we've got Blevins with his Go XLR over there. So we're really excited
My real
to
voice.
See, I would only do it if
Yes.
it was funny, and it wasn't funny there, so I've lost the privilege.
Yep, it's true. You're banned. I'll just give me the mixer. Yeah, so we're really going to be trying to attack season 3 for you guys, put out more content, different content, and adapt and improve. It's always been what we've wanted to do
Mhm.
with any money we bring in. We're not paying ourselves. We're not we're trying to go on trips to report on them and give
Mhm.
content based on grand finals and things like that. And so we really do try to put it back into the show, and hopefully over the next month and over the course of season 3, you guys really see a lot of that. Because this is honestly one of the first things we've done other than the trips in a little while.
Yeah.
To really tangibly improve the show and provide more content to our fan base. So really appreciative of everything you guys have done for us, and hoping to give it back to you guys this year. So keep an eye out for all that.
By this year, he means next year, because this year has approximately one more day in it. So,
Well, I said what I said, and I'm not really bound to very much. So thanks for
True.
blowing up my
So
spot.
that
Blitz.
means that
The rest of the show must be provided in this voice because
no. Okay, I'm spending it up front for no reason. But yeah. So holidays for me, I was gone for, oh man, what felt like forever. Not in a bad way. It's nice to be away. I go down downstate New York to visit the girlfriend's family, and we have a good time. But it's just like I'm away from. I mean, I still have Twitter and whatnot, but like I'm away from games for so long. I'm not really able to record anything there, and it's just I had this Go XLR. Just like my girlfriend's brother actually got one for Christmas, and I was thinking about ordering one anyway. I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna pull the trigger here. So,
It's been on our wish list for a little while for
yeah.
sure. So definitely great to have one. Now I cannot talk over sound clips when you're playing them if they get played. It's
Hey,
iffy.
we used one. We used one already, and it went off without a hitch.
So far so good. You're batting 1,000 with the once we made it more technical and more convoluted, your accuracy really improved
Yeah.
somehow. So appreciate that. But yeah, but otherwise your holiday was pretty good.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. I got a lot of nice things. It's just good to I've been busy with podcasting and streaming and all that stuff. So it was nice to get a little bit of a break. But I
It's one
just
of those
wanted to get
things you
back
like
into it.
really want the holidays to be over, and then you want to get back into the swing of things, and then you realize that means you have to go back to work, and you're like, oh,
Yeah,
I don't know about that.
I like it. It's weird because it's like I was off from my air quotes for the podcast listeners real job, but also like my it's hard to even call it a job, but like podcasting and streaming and all that sort of content stuff. I was also on vacation from that, and it's like, well, I didn't really want to go on vacation from that, but I
Mhm.
definitely want to go on vacation from real work. So it's it's a cost, but it's nice to be around family and all that stuff. So that was good. And Bills, playoffs, et cetera, all good. Actually, almost went to the game yesterday, and now I'm very glad that I didn't. I didn't like put two and two together that it was going to be a garbage time game.
Yeah.
I don't know why I didn't put that together because it was very obvious that it was going to be.
That's why you were able to get tickets, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, my girlfriend's sister ended up going because she's in from Texas and she wanted to go to a game. This was the only game she could go to. It's the only time of the year she was here. So she went, and then we were going to go, but I was like, I don't really feel like going. And I guess my instincts were correct.
Yes, they worked out for you for sure.
Yes. But we do have a lot to talk about here because we did have that week off with the holiday. So let's move on here and talk about some news. Okay, you weren't supposed to hear that one because I did it on. Nope. I had it set up before, but I think it. Oh wait, actually, hold on. This might. No, I'm not going to press that button. I'm too scared to press it now. Okay.
All this money wasted, but no, I'm just kidding.
No, it's a process. It's a process.
Yeah, no, we are still setting it all up and testing it, and we're
Yes.
trying to drips and drabs use it more and more as we understand it. We really do mean it. If there's any problems, our apologies up front, and please do let us know. What did you hear? What went wrong? If we acknowledge it in the show, we know it happened.
Right.
You don't have to bring it up. But if it's something we just skip over and you think we might not know it happened, let us know. Timestamp it for us. Anything you can do to help us. We want to get this figured out so we can give you the best content possible.
What I will say is that I opened this Go XLR yesterday, so I was playing around with it yesterday afternoon. So I was playing around with it a little bit yesterday, but I am far from an expert with it. So bear with us as we try to improve the quality of the stream.
You guys know how the old drops went. He had one button to press. Now there's levers, there's knobs. It could be a bumpy road.
This one is still kind of one button, but you need to do it on it's more front end work. But
I'm just trying to give you a cover, man. Just take it.
And I'm trying to throw that cover away for no reason. But let's talk about some news here. Ji Qiren and Yang Xiaolong have left the Chengdu Hunters. I mean, are these really huge players for the Hunters anyway? I mean, what are we really losing here as a Hunters fan?
Well, Ji Qiren was the tank that can play normal tank heroes, right? That's at least how it was kind of built.
They don't want anything to do with that.
They don't. Well, they used YXL a decent amount as well. I don't have playtime numbers in front of me or anything like that, but I've heard some things that there's rumors. This is the one team to me that is still very up in the air and might change quite a bit. So we might bump them down in our where they're not this episode anyways. So we may bump them down. In the order of how we kind of talk about them. We're going to be going in standings order for the most part, but yeah, there's rumors coming out that this roster is going to change a decent amount still. So I think we need to just kind of put a pin in this one. And these aren't, star power players or anything like that to me that they're losing here. So I want to see kind of what it looks like at the end. But I think it's even going to be a lot of Chinese talent, and I'm not going to know anything about them anyways. Right. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see how this team performs and see exactly how much they do change as the preseason kind of wears on and continues.
For sure. The one thing about Chengdu Hunters is, even if the wild card sort of play style didn't work out for them in the overall last season, it can still, it resets every time, right? Because a new wild card can happen. Every time there's a new meta, if they want to play a weird thing, they can still be the best at it. It's still possible. And you don't need it to be, depending on how they take it, they could have it work for a stage and then adapt and play the meta and get better at it, or they could do something weird every time. It can still work. So if you're a Chengdu Hunters fan, I'm not worried about the sort of, I would argue, failed experiment of what they did last season. But
hard to call it too much of a success. It was fun.
Yeah, it was fun for sure. But if your eyes are on, playoffs, and championships, then you want something that's a little more consistent and gets a couple more W's probably. But it, overall, I think you can still have that philosophy, and it can just because it didn't work in one season doesn't mean that it's the experiment doesn't always work. right? It can work later, and it can, it can
Yeah,
really
and they
change
also
it.
have the ultimate off meta pick for the Chengdu Hunters, which is to play the meta. Nobody would see that
True.
coming.
True.
So that's still they don't have to continue that plan.
Mhm.
But we'll have to just see what the final roster looks like. Clearly, they're still moving some pieces around, or
Yep.
still announcing the moved pieces around.
Right. For sure. Speaking of some moved pieces or some gained pieces, Babel, Jihun, Alvo, and Cleston have joined the London Spitfire. And I will save us the few minutes of us babbling on about people that we're not super sure about, because we do have a clip from the Blackwatch
Well,
report, which we
we're
don't
gonna
need
be
to play
talking
right
about
now.
them later,
Yeah, we
right?
are going to be
Yeah.
talking about them. We have a clip from the Blackwatch report that is going to go over. We actually, I guess I'll just preview it now. We have a clip. We mentioned it last episode about having Kyle Wynn and Thornrain do some clips about some of the tier 2 people and the changes that happened with these with the Overwatch League teams, people that got called up or moved around that we just didn't know about or weren't super familiar with because they were playing in tier 2. Maybe we hadn't seen them in a long time. They did an awesome job and made us a bunch of sound clips for these teams that we're going to be talking about. We've got all 4 of the teams that we're going to be talking about today lined up and ready to go from Kyle and Thorn. So huge shout out to them. Make sure you guys are checking out the Blackwatch report on Twitter and on their podcast feeds as well. Because tier 2 never stops. Tier 2, tier 3, it's a train that keeps on going. And if you want to stay on top of it, you got to make sure you listen to the Blackwatch report. But yeah, we will get more info on them in that segment. Moving on here, we've got ANS has joined the San Francisco Shock. Do we know anything about this, or should I repeat my previous statement about Kyle and Thornton talking?
We've already previewed them. So
right.
we should, so we won't be playing their drop, though we do have it. This is a weird signing. This is like Chips a Light, maybe.
By the way, I'm wearing a Fish and Chips shirt, special edition, guys. Hashtag support tier 2.
It's an audio show. No.
There's a YouTube channel, youtube.com/High Noon Podcast. Uncultured swine.
You're not wrong. So ANS has been playing for the team retired since January of 2019. So he retired about 11 months ago. He did play on Blossom in Korea back a couple. I think this might have been. I'm not going to try to put a timeline on it. It sounds like it was during season 1.
Mm-hmm.
So he's definitely okay. I've actually got it here. Okay, so Overwatch Contenders 2018 season 3. He was on Blossom and came up through trials to get there and didn't have the best showing, but he was kind of like a borderline tier 3 into tier 2 player before his retirement, and San Francisco saw enough to want to bring him in. So they're back to 5 DPS, which tells me that we really need to consider the likelihood or possibility of a trade from them. This is not the first time we've seen them with 5 DPS on their roster. They did trade Baby Bay last season to get that number down to 4. So I think that's something they might be open to doing. This is possibly just where they want to be, right? Like the price may have just been right on Baby Bay, and 5 DPS might be what they're looking for and hoping for. But not a lot on this player just because he's been inactive for a little while. So I view this as a developmental prospect or a developmental signing. I fully expect Architect or Striker to be this team's Widowmaker, but ANS is known as a sniper player predominantly. So a lot of Widowmaker, a lot of Hanzo. I think he's played McCree in the past as well. I don't know about any other heroes that may or may not be in his pool, and even that is kind of secondhand information as well. So it's a very curious signing to me. It reminds me a lot of KSF, and not just because there's 3 letters in the name, but because I don't expect this to make a big impact on the team straight out of the gate. This was a championship caliber roster last season. I don't think you just make that change and switch out into an unknown DPS player, especially when you couldn't even use striker and architect really last year when you think about it.
Right.
So things are going to be interesting in San Francisco, but I think this is more of a long-term signing, probably somebody they were able to pick up real cheap. For all I know, he's got a stream presence in Korea. I couldn't tell you, other than I do have a link to his Twitch page, so presumably he does stream on occasion. But yeah, so something interesting to watch. I'm expecting him to be lightly used, if used at all, for the first year, and then maybe 2021 we start to see him peppered in or used, or who knows, maybe they make a trade, maybe architect plays somewhere else most of the season and then he does get used. But as the roster stands right now, hard to imagine him working his way in much.
Right. It does. I agree with what you said. It does lead me to think, though, that maybe we're seeing a striker or an architect or someone moved, traded, sold, whatever. I mean, I don't know if I want to make a big move like that if I'm San Francisco, like we've talked about in the past few episodes. Like, you're number one. There's only one place to go, and making moves makes you move, right? Potentially. So, it could be a developmental signing. It could be we had, we got a good offer on striker. Someone had interest in striker for some reason is the one that's jumping out to me, is like he had such high value from season 1, did not see that value realized in season 2. So maybe they're, not getting full price for striker, but they obviously have a beat on how good or not good striker is right now, how much they want to or not want to use him. So right. if a team came up and offered you, 75-80% of what striker was in season 1, you might be willing to take that even if you wanted to use striker, right?
Yeah, I was going to use the same percentage even too. Maybe you're right. Maybe they're getting 75 cents on the dollar and
right.
just cutting their losses, or
right.
it certainly could be. Because they, like you said, they know how good he is now. Other teams only know how good he was when he was on stage. So yeah, that always creates some interest. But I will say, I don't think his lack of value was his fault or anybody's fault other than just the meta last year.
Oh,
so
for sure.
Presumably he's still good. And it's all just speculation and questioning.
Because his lack of value wasn't his fault doesn't mean that he was still able to get good practice on.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, it doesn't mean they feel good about acquiring
right.
him.
And paying him, exactly. So who knows? We'll see that play out like we will many of the other signings once season 3 week 1 begins, which can't come soon enough. Cannot come soon enough. I'm so ready. Next one up here, we have the Seoul Dynasty has released Zunba, a mainstay, a long-time Seoul Dynasty player.
Yeah, an OG even. I think he was on the initial roster announcement for Seoul. So a little sad to see him go from that respect. But really, outside of a couple of maps specifically, like I can remember one King of the Hill map, Control Center. I think it's Nepal. I could be blanking, and it's Lijiang. My apologies if that's the case. But there's a couple maps here or there where I thought he's really popped. He's known to be kind of a Zarya mainstay more so than a diva player. Zarya not great in the meta at the moment, so that could be a signal to just, if we don't think we're gonna need his one trick, and even if we did, Michelle plays it pretty well, then it was just kind of an unnecessary spot on their roster. So might as well free it up, give yourself some flexibility in the future during the signing period, what have you. Whether they use it or not, we'll have to wait and see. This release doesn't move the needle for me on Seoul, because it's just not somebody I anticipated being on the stage.
Right. It again, might be some more fat trimming, might just be a little bit of a reorg or a philosophical change. Seoul also one of the teams that has made some of the biggest changes in their roster, so could just be a almost a regime change from the starting lineup. So not too much here. Last piece of news we have here is that Snillo has been released from the Philadelphia Fusion. My biggest question, Death, is what is going to happen to all those unsold Snillo pillows? Are they going to give them away? Are they going to be sending them out to, I don't know, podcasters? I'm just wondering where those Snillo pillows are going and why I don't have one.
we should probably have them. I don't know, but you bet over stupid sneakers that don't fit me, so I couldn't get any use out of those. Instead of Snillapillas, yeah,
Fella.
as far as Snillapillas, yeah, that's
Hey,
what I call
I'm
them
a
anyway.
fish and chips boy now, so.
No, that's worse. But I feel like I just talked about this with Zunba. It's not something I think moves
Yeah.
the needle at all in the Philadelphia Fusion because I wouldn't have expected him to be on the stage. I'm going to go a little farther with this one and go completely forgot the man was still on the roster. So
Was he a two-way or something?
he was two-way, so
Okay.
he went to Korea with Fusion Uni for the last season of Contenders there, and I think that's the more telling loss here, right? Is
Yeah.
that he's not going to be on Fusion University, although the state
They're
of all the tier 2 teams, I don't even know if Fusion Uni
Fusion.
is playing in the next season.
No,
So.
they're now T1.
Okay,
So
well,
that makes sense. I hope he
yeah,
finds a team though, because he like even in Overwatch League, I remember specifically like against NYXL in season 1, like there were some Carpe Snillo. Remember the greatest Harry Potter spell ever, from Doa. There were times where he shined. I just think he didn't shine as bright as the other starters, right? And his hero pool just didn't line up with what Billy was doing. But he was a very serviceable player, a good DPS player, and I think, a lot of these players who were maybe, bench players, second ring, maybe saw a couple of maps here and there, maybe, some actual stage time. Like I hope that at least some of them, are making their way back through Contenders and can learn from because it's like, it's not just how good you are at one hero, right? That's just not how Overwatch is. It's how good you are at multiple heroes, and your hero pool needs to be balanced, right? You need to be good at that, and that needs to like complement the hero pools of the other, the other players on the team. So it'll be interesting to see how, like, I guess, it's just kind of unlucky for these early timers, right? Because it's not defined. It's not so defined like traditional sports where it's like, okay, if you are a center in football, you know exactly what you're going to be doing. You know exactly the skills you need, and you know exactly what you need to min max on. You don't need to worry about like, oh well, now, halfway through the season, the center has to also run the ball or something like that. Like that's just not going to happen. The position is locked. You know exactly what you can min max on. And that's just not the case here. And maybe we get towards more of that standardization. I mean, I think with roll lock, we kind of got that a little bit at least. But a lot of these players just, I'm thinking like IDDQD, like he, I don't know if anyone would say he was a terrible player on, McCree or XYZ hero, but he didn't fit anywhere, right? You can have I'm just thinking of all the McCree players. Grim Reality, another one, like the McCree was never useful, right? Unfortunately for them. So it'll be interesting to see how that sort of plays out. But I hope that these players, the up and comers from tier 2, as well as the the fallen tier 1 players, or cut tier 1 players, I hope that I hope that there's some sort of standardization, or just like not even standardization from the league side, but just like what you need, like at a base what you need to be focusing on.
Yeah, a way to break up. It would be great for the teams. It might be impossible, so
Right.
it's not
It
to
sure
fault
could be.
anybody for it not being there. But it would be great for the teams and for the players, like you said, to just have something you can focus on. And I think you're right about Snillo in particular too. I think he's a very solid replacement level player, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where if you're going to need a substitute for a couple of games, somebody gets sick or what have you, he's not going to kill you. He's not going to look out like a fish out of water, like he doesn't belong. He might not be what you want to go into a season as your starter with. I get and agree with that. But I think there's a lot of value for a player like Snillo on a roster. So I do hope he lands on his feet and it's not the last we've seen of him. Because I don't know, when it looked like Carpe wasn't going to be back, like in my head at the time, I remember thinking like, well, maybe they've been working on Snillo and really like him enough, and are gonna just bring him up and go from there and try it that way. clearly went exactly the opposite direction. But
Mhm.
Snillo and Carpe aren't really on the same page. But does,
Right.
I think, make sense for Philly just because there's so much, like it's like a perfect overlap in hero pools between him and Carpe, right? It's like pretty restricted hero pool, hit scan specific. Tracer is really what stands out to me for Snillo, and
Mhm.
Carpe is still going to be the best one on Philly. So it was going to take a specifically like sniper uh tracer meta again, like
Yep.
a widow tracer meta again, to
Mhm.
really for them to use him. So I get it in this case. Carpe's not shown any propensity to miss time or anything like that. So
Mhm.
it should just all be solid here for Philly, unlike their tanks.
Yeah.
Had to fire my shot even though it's not their episode.
Yeah, and can't even say put Fraggy in because he doesn't play for them. But yeah, I mean
Trade for Fraggy, you cowards.
trade back for Fraggy, yes, please. But yeah, I mean it's unfortunate to see, and I do hope that, I mean, these are the types of, there's a lot of things that we talked about that are, we disagree with things, or a team, Soul in particular, doing things that we just think are objectively wrong. There are other teams that have done that as well. Things that we think the league have done wrong, but they've been improving, and I think this is almost like this is something that they may never even touch, right? They may never move towards there being more stability, but I'm just thinking as like from a player perspective and coming from a traditional
Yeah.
sports perspective, it's like if I was taking kids at a high school or middle school or whatever level and like having them be competitive with the hopes or the goal of playing in the Overwatch League someday. You see a kid, okay, when he's in middle school, like you have an idea, okay, this kid's gonna be 6'8", okay. He's gonna be a big man. He's not gonna be a point guard or whatever. Maybe he does, but like you can, okay, he's gonna be working on post moves. I'm talking about basketball here. He's gonna be working on post moves and making layups and all this stuff, you know. Or if a kid has a rocket for an arm, okay, he's a great quarterback. You know what he's gonna be working on, or if he's gonna be a lineman or something. Uh, you know, you're working on those things for years and years and years, and the fundamentals from when you're 5 years old till the highest levels are going to be the same, and you're working towards the same things. But when those things change constantly and you're not sure if that's going to be relevant or not, like if they just made a giant circle in or if they changed football so that halfway through the season there's no more running plays, right? Well, all of a sudden the multi-million-dollar running back that you have is not worth anything, right? And all these players that you see what I'm saying? It's like, but that kind of happens with Overwatch League. It happened with Overwatch League with the GOATS meta. So I don't know if they'll ever touch it, if they'll ever. I mean, I do think roll lock is close.
I was
to
just
that.
gonna say they've made at least one big
Yeah,
step
that's
towards
huge. That is
but
definitely huge.
it's still not the ideal solution from a player perspective. Again, it doesn't mean this isn't a negative from the viewers, from the
Right.
whatever, the fan side
Sure.
of things.
Sure.
Unless you really like a player with a very narrow hero pool, I
Right.
suppose. But it's just something that would, I think, help, like you said, prospective players
Yeah, the systematic
practice,
stuff
train
behind it.
up, and then
Yep.
at the end of the day, it would just make the overall product better, right? If you
Mm-hmm.
increase the quality of the upcoming player pool, then you increase the quality of the player pool that when they get here. So
Yep.
that's just a positive.
Yeah, for sure. Something to think about from the league perspective, but who knows? It may very well be impossible. But let's make the impossible possible. That wasn't a real segue. Let's just talk about these teams. Let's talk about some teams, and we'll break them down in the preseason.
Oh, let's break it. Yeah!
That one also you weren't supposed to hear, so no worries. I did. Gonna start off by talking about the LA Gladiators here. There's a laundry list of changes here, Death. You want to go through those?
Yeah, hydration out, roar out, Shaz, Big Goose re-signed. Space was signed. They traded Decay to Dallas, got OGE back. They signed Birdring, Mirror, Paintbrush, Bishu, LH Cloudy, and Jaru. So
wow.
massive changes here from the LA Gladiators side. We're going to look at what happened last year, but no, it's not as relevant as it is with a lot of other teams. But there's a solid base here, right? Like the support line is staying the same. The coaches stayed the same. So I think there's still some value to be gained here. Last year they were 4th place overall. They had 0 top 4 stage playoff appearances, so really struggled in the clutch moment. They lost to both grand finals participants in the playoffs. They did defeat Hangzhou first, so they were eliminated in the second round of eliminations. So yeah, not the worst showing on the year, but not really what the Gladiators signed up for. And they were
No.
always a team that reeked of potential and it just never once was fulfilled. So I do think this team needed to make significant changes. We're going to talk a little bit about whether or not we think these these changes in particular were too much. But specifically, let's look. They were, let's see, 17-11 overall in the match record. That was the 5th seed going into the playoffs. They had win rates on hybrid of 66%, assault 56, escort 50, and control 45. Their bad maps: Hanamura 10% win percentage, Dorado 20, Ilios 29, Lijiang Tower 33. So the question here becomes, specifically to me, the biggest question mark is the tank line. Now the DPS line is also changed very, very significantly. And I have massive questions about that. But I think the tank line is more interesting to talk about, right? They've got OGE and space. These are known quantities. These are things we can point to past examples. And how do you think this tank line is going to stack up? Is this going to be better than Roar Decay was for them?
Well, I would sure hope so for their sake, obviously. But space is a very, very high tier off tank. Lauded as one of the best off tanks in the league. I think Space saw the writing on the wall and knew his worth in the other the LA Valiant, and jump ship over to the LA Gladiators. So I've got no real questions here about Space, but OGE, we've talked about OGE many times. We've talked about the whole players essentially benching themselves for whatever reason. And regardless of your stance on whether the players should do that or not, at the end of the day, if they're not on the stage, they're not contributing to the team. So that's always going to be an issue or something in the back of my mind if I am an LA Gladiators fan or if I'm an owner of OGE. So, yeah, I mean, at the end, and also we've seen different high quality, high tier pieces that are brought together and just don't mesh, right? Both OG and Space have dealt with at least semi mixed rosters, so that is not they're not necessarily coming into a new scenario there. But I don't know if Space and OG have played together or not. Maybe they just the styles might just conflict. But until we see that, I'm not betting on it. I do think it is. We have a very known and very solid support line. The DPS core is there. But yeah, there are players that are there, but it's a hotbed there for the tank players, and that can be that can be a really hot streak to win, or it could be too hot and explode. Who knows? I guess we'll see.
So yeah, I think generally the tank line is going to be improved, and I think there's redundancy here as well. I think LH Cloudy and Bishu are kind of exactly what I talked about before. Bishu maybe is a little more than this, but the good replacement talent level, right? Like they're what you want in a backup. They're not flashy, so they're not going to be like feel like they're wasted on the bench, and they're not going to kill you either if you need to use them. So Cloudy was the better of the two tanks on Paris last season, I thought. So it's good to see him stick around. Like we talked about it previously. Kind of wish it was Panker who they controlled and let
Right.
go. But so be it. That's that ship has already sailed. We can't worry about that. So yeah, I think the tank line will be improved, and I do like that they gave themselves that redundancy there. I said already, I have tons of questions about the DPS line. So Decay was there. I mean, they had Decay and Surefour, and they're trying to replace that, and they're doing that with Jaru and Birdring, basically, from what I'm seeing. And that's not like Birdring is bad. What is he still doing in the league? Is my question. Like, in all honesty, what is he doing here? He I think would even ask the same question himself based off of the interviews when they were doing like London stuff before the playoffs. Like I think he said, I think we can beat anybody in this league if I'm playing well. Like if I play as good as Prophet does, we can beat anybody. Something along those lines, right? Like he knows he's not a top tier DPS. When you have that mentality, it's impossible to be there, right? To me, he's spent, he's done. And I don't know why he's still in Overwatch League. Jaru is a prospect that I think other people are higher on than me. I do remember him from the past, and it's been a minute, so maybe he's improved. He's got a solid chance to be something, right? So I think if they hit with Jaru, this team can really be a playoff contender. I really struggle to see them as improved when I look at this roster compared to the past. And we'll see that in my anticipated record. I'm pegging them at dead even, 14-14. Probably better than that, right? Sorry, Gladiators fans, straight up. Probably better than that, but I have to bake a loss or two in, whatever OGE is going to do. I don't know, but I'm factoring a loss or two in for that. And then if I had confidence in this DPS core, I'd stack another 3-4 wins on there, right? So this could easily move. But when I'm looking at it now with all the indecisiveness, wondering how the new pieces are going to gel, like the only thing I'm confident on in this roster is that space is going to be mechanically very, very good,
Right.
and their support line is going to play very well. I've been big Shaz and Big Goose fans for a long time.
It's not a small
Gladiators
goose.
have always been on the outer edge of the teams I'm rooting for because of those two. So it pains me to speak even remotely negatively about them because I want to see Shaz and Big Goose make that deep run into the playoffs. They're phenomenal to watch. I really, really enjoy it, unless it's against Houston. But yeah, I really, there's too many question marks for I think anybody to be confident in what is going on here with this team. So I'm tentatively putting them smack dab in the middle, just 500 record. They're probably going to be right in the middle of my power rankings. There's too much talent for this to be a bad team. I do think that's accurate, but I don't think
We've seen a
I
lot
don't
of talent.
This. It's
flop.
true. It's definitely true, but I just, to me, I don't know, the holes on DPS. We've seen that murder Houston, and I wouldn't be surprised if this team turns out to be is very similar to what the first two seasons of Houston were. I won't be surprised at all if they're just gaps in the hero pool and they, whatever. But Blevins, what do you have them for in an anticipated record in 2020?
Yeah, it's really hard for me to. I am agreeing with a lot of what you're saying. It's really hard for me. It's hard for me to have a lot of confidence in them, but it's really hard for me to put them at a losing record. I think I'll give them an extra. I want to say, what is it, 24? Or no, it's 28 games,
28,
right?
yeah.
I want to say if I give them an extra 2 wins, that's 16-12.
I think that's
Man,
pretty on par. It's like agreeing with me in the terms of win totals you've assigned in the last episode. So I think that sounds about right to me.
Yeah, that sounds. Man, I don't know.
I'm making regression to the mean more of a theme with my record predictions and stuff.
The other thing is I could see this just being just mediocre team, and I'm trying to think of what is 500 is not middle, right? I don't know. I could see them being worse than 500, honestly. But
possible.
in all honesty, they're probably a little bit better. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, they're weird. Like the floor for the team feels like their most likely outcome to me. This is the only team I really kind of have this feeling about when I look at them, where what I think they're probably going to be is like the worst version of their combined self, and that means, to be honest, my guess is probably wrong, and
Right.
off base. But I'm just like hedging my bets because it is probably a pretty pretty wide range of outcomes.
I guess their star factor here is like space and OGE and bird ring.
So you
maybe
asked about like what 14 and 14 would have been. One game better than the Fusion last season. They were 15 and 13. So was Guangzhou. Shanghai 13 and 15.
Yeah, I feel like I put them on the lower end of that. Then I might even go lower than that.
Honestly, Philly might be a very good comp. Like Philly last year might be a very good comp for them as well as Houston.
That feels very similar.
One thing, a slightly better Houston or a slightly worse Philly somewhere around.
Yeah. What I forgot is that we actually have some intel from Blackwatch report that we can play that I should have played earlier, but let's play them and hope that this works.
LA Gladiators, one of my personal favorite teams. Love the colors. I love the fact that they were crazy enough to finally pick up Jaru. We had been calling... We ranked Jaru a couple different seasons pretty high on our NA DPS list. Solid Pharah. Paired nice with Sharp. We're going to have to see how he works out not working next to somebody who he has a lot of synergy and cohesion with. But I think Jaru is I don't want to say budget, but he's a good value pickup. I think this is going to help just put a little bit of flexibility in their DPS line here with Jaru.
Yeah, they also picked up Mirror, who is a player that I feel like flew under the radar for a lot of people, but has always struck me as kind of this nice, consistent player that when you're working with a DPS partner in Bird Ring, you kind of need to have kind of just your glue guy. I feel like Mirror can be that glue guy. Not going to be going for the crazy plays, but will always be doing what's required of him, kind of picking up slack when it's necessary. Very flexible player. We saw him play Hanzo, Junkrat, Doomfist, Genji, can bring out the Widow, played the Zarya quite a bit. Very flexible guy. I think there's a lot of potential in him. As well in Paintbrush, we very likely won't see Paintbrush play because he's sitting behind the biggest of gooses. But he is a player that, coming from Mayhem Academy, started out really rough, but then we saw really nice, consistent improvement over a long period of time. Eventually was part of the team that took down Fusion University, went to Revival, had some issues there, but I think overall him individually, he's a really high potential player that has shown really nice improvement, and we'll definitely learn a lot from Goose.
So there you have it. The Blackwatch report from Tier 2.
It's almost like a segment name.
The Blackwatch report. The Blackwatch report from Black.
It's got to be the Blackwatch report.
Yes, the Blackwatch report. Yes.
Well, otherwise nobody can find them on Twitter. If we don't say Blackwatch report, we've got to refer to the legal name.
We've got to refer to the
referred.
So yeah, looks like Kyle and Thorn are pretty high on Jaru. So
yes.
I mean, if he is the wow factor here, I get a little bit more confidence. It's like
he's the key to me. And Mirror, what Kyle said about Mirror was very interesting to me. Mm-hmm. He's not a player really on my radar, but probably should be, right? Because if I think Bird Ring's terrible, then he's not going then he's going to get on the stage over him, right? But I don't know hero pools well enough to know like what that pairing would look like exactly. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Yep. But yeah, I would use the word budget, which Thorn fell short of using for
well,
Jaru.
He said I wouldn't call him a budget, and then just
he called him
describe the word budget in a different way. I wouldn't call him budget, but let me read the dictionary entry for what budget means.
You're not wrong there.
You, Thorn. We're teasing you. We love you.
I would just use the word though. But listen, that's been the case about striker going into season 1, right? Like, I say it because
True.
you need to acknowledge it, but it's not damning of the player or what their upside is or anything like that. So could work out brilliantly and needs to. And if it does, 500 record is definitely wrong. They should
Yes.
be, closer to the top 6 or, something
Mhm.
like that. But we'll have to wait and see. And I'm nothing if not consistent in my distrust of anybody that's not played on the highest stage before.
True.
So.
True. But let's move on here. Thorn's trying to is trying to defend himself in chat, but I'm ignoring what he's saying. Let's move on to talk about the Atlanta Reign. Death, let's talk. Why don't you tell us about the moves that the Reign have made?
Sure. Funny Astros out, shipped over to Philadelphia. They brought Hawk up from ATL Academy. They released Daco. They released Nalair. And they signed Sharp, which, if you checked the OverwatchLeague.com offseason player tracker, you'd have no idea that happened because, hey, if we're going to post a player tracker, why not leave a bunch of names off it? 2 and 2 episodes, guys. Come on. Yikes. Let's get it going. It's like, it's our resource. It's what we have to use. Can we get it right, please? And they also signed Edison. So this is a tough one. But let's look at what they did last year. The core is
do we
still
want to do
here.
the Blackwatch report before we go into last year?
It's up to you. In my head, I was going to throw to them after I did the map stats,
Okay,
but
let's
it's
do that.
completely your. Okay,
Nope.
We'll try that, and maybe we'll switch it up next and see what you like. So last year they upset San Francisco in the quarterfinals of the playoffs, and then fell to the New York Excelsior and Hangzhou Spark in consecutive sets, and was eliminated in the second round of the elimination bracket. They were 16-12 in the regular season, snuck them right into the actual playoffs, not the play-in. So they had the 6th seed. They got some extra time off there. Let's see. They were 60% on control, 55 on assault, 52 on escort, and 50% on hybrid. So positive or even map record in every map type across the board. If there's an easier way to have success in the Overwatch League, I don't know how to do it. Phenomenal job by the coaching staff, I've got to say, after looking at those numbers. We use this a lot in season 1, maybe less so in stage 2, but they were like the model of consistency. They had no maps over a 90% win rate, but all of the game modes were over 50%. The bad maps were Gibraltar 0%. Yikes! How good were the rest of their the rest of their payload?
Right.
To even that out. But we've got Volskaya 38, Nepal 40, Busan 43, Kings Row 27, and Numbani is 43. I think I may have said that. Busan was the same percentage, so I don't know. Anyways, let's hear from Kyle and Thorn.
The Atlanta Academy, 2 call-ups. We see Gator and Hawk getting the official call-ups, no longer 2 ways. Both of these players, I think, phenomenal pickups. We saw Gator in last season playing on that 2-way contract, doing great things for them in the playoffs. Really looked good. Hawk, we've talked up Hawk ever since I believe he was back on phase 2. There was a moment where we called his bombs the Hawk bombs because he needed no setup for his Diva bombs. Now, going into a meta that we're not going to see a whole lot of Diva, we did get to see him on the Sigma, where Gator was playing the Sigma for Atlanta Reign. I really think that this tank line upgrade coming out of tier 2 for them was the smartest play to lock these 2 players up. So Kyle, they picked up 2 DPS players.
Yes. Basically, Erster is a deadlock for that projectile spot. He is shown to be nothing less than probably one of the most flexible and most skilled at those flexible picks. So you have to have someone to slide with him. What Atlanta Reign did is pick up Edison out of GC Busan Wave. Definitely one of the best players off of that team. Absolutely, one of the best hits game players we saw coming out of Contenders Korea. As well, out of NA/EU, the best hits game player we had here was Sharp. Pulling him off of Team Envy as well. So there's really nowhere that Atlanta can go wrong. They have 3 great players to slot up against Erster in that DPS line. You've got so many different options to do. You can have these players be specialized in different heroes. But really, there's no doubt about this tank line or this DPS line anymore.
Yeah, what Kyle and Thorne are saying here is really it's furthering my confidence in the Atlanta Reign here. I mean, you look at their numbers; they had the nothing below 50%, and this is factoring in a. I'm trying to think how they did in stage 1 and stage 2, but they were not. Did they make the playoffs in stage 1? God, my boomer brain is going hog wild here. But they had the, a lot of their success was backloaded on the end of the season, right? So, they made up for a lot of these percentages in stage 4. So that means that they were showing, improvement over the course of a season, which is just good in and of itself. So even if they come out to a slow start,
finished 5th in the standings in stage 1.
Okay, so actually not bad.
2 was one of them was real bad. I think it was stage 3. So
okay.
They were 11th. They were 3 and 4 in stage 2, which is fine. Stage 3, they were winless. No, they won right at the end. They won their 2 at their homestand, but they were winless prior to that. So they were 2 and 5.
They had the homestand and they didn't lose.
And then they dominated stage 4, 7-0, right there with the shock. Okay. So yeah, it's funny. I hate that I use the words model of consistency, but it's so funny when you think about how up and down that season was for them. And then when you step back and look at it overall at the just the numbers, it really was a very solid overall performance. And there was so many ups and downs with that team, from the ride that was DeFran. Coming in and then throwing that grab over the roof in Hollywood and then retiring on the spot. And, it just everything, it was nuts. And it had to have been very distracting. They traded for his replacement mid-season, got Baby Bay up to speed with his old coach. It was easier. But yeah, and as far as what Thorne and Kyle said, I thought what Kyle said was phenomenal. Sorry, Thor. I listen. Sharp coming in fills that gap. I think he's got a much higher upside than somebody like Baby Bay, and they still have Baby Bay, so they've got that consistency sitting there. You've got Erster, who was a powerhouse, and to give Thorne some credit, he very well might be right. Okay, personally, I think Fred and Pakpo are the better of the 2 tanks. Hawk might be there because I'm not the biggest Fred fan in the world. I just don't see Gator as better than Pakpo. Time will tell. Obviously, we're going to find out, and it may be
on that Sigma.
He did, and I think it may be hero dependent, right? Because if Sigma's really popular, he might be their best at that. We could see a bit of a rotation there for sure, but you also could just see them play the duo that was with them in Atlanta Academy first and see if they can build off that and upgrade that, because the potential, like what Thorne Rain sees is the potential, and what I see is the indecision. And I think that's the difference. And we're looking at the same thing. We're seeing very similar things, and that's them looking really good. I mean, Atlanta Academy was great in contenders, so a call up makes perfect sense. I'm just not sold that it's going to actually be a duo they're just going to roll out in the Overwatch League and see it succeed. But I'm more than happy to see them try it. I'm more than happy to see it succeed. I have no ill will towards the team, the players, anything like that. I just was pretty impressed by the reliability of Pakpo, and maybe they want more plays or whatever. But when you bring in Edison and Sharp to go with Erster, and you have Dogman on the flex support, you don't need every position to pop off.
Right.
You don't need it. You need some consistency. You need some solid play, in there. Nothing streaky to kind of get you through those times when those players maybe aren't popping off and are getting killed a little bit. So I wonder that it might be just too much aggression. I don't know. I'd really need to see them play as a duo more. Something we'll certainly get into, obviously, if they hit the stage, right? I'll go back and watch a ton of VODs of them in the past and what have you. But right now, I do kind of pencil it in as Pokpo, and then Hawk versus Fred is definitely much more up for grabs to me. It's a much weaker position, the off tank, than the main tank. So really excited to see all the call ups here. All the call ups are positive, generally speaking, right? They're all good. They all have the potential to impact the roster and improve this team. It's the first team we've said that about, so it's certainly not something every team can say. And yeah, so Atlanta's in a phenomenal spot to me. They're going to be a lot of fun to watch. What do you got for them for a record, though, Blevins?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm thinking the high end of Gladiators was 16-12, I have a lot more confidence in them. I'm thinking maybe 18-10, maybe, I don't know if I can put them to 19, maybe even a 19. I mean, the thing is it's going to be, the question is, are they going to start off rough again? I mean, they didn't start off super rough in stage one of last season. But they had, like you said, those ups and downs. Could have been the Dufran, could have been, it could have been a lot of things. If we're riding momentum from last season, which, maybe they're not, right? I mean, they've got all this time off. It's a brand new season. It's brand new everything. I could see them coming out strong and being a contender. Like, they have that star power on it. They have that pop off quality. They have the consistency. They've shown not only the ability to dominate a stage, which is impressive in and of itself, but they've shown the ability to dominate a stage after getting completely dumpstered in the stage directly before it. It's one thing to be able to dominate when you're really good and ahead. It's another thing to be able to come down or come back up from the dregs and then be able to dominate. That shows a complete range, right? We've seen teams that they lose and they just crumble. We've seen players that just can't handle it. They can't handle the pressure. They crumble under adversity. But when you see a team like Atlanta Reign that, pushes through that and can go from almost an 0-7 season into their homestand, win those, and then not lose another regular season game, period, that shows a lot to me and really, makes me even push them. Could we see a 20-win season out of them? I mean, that's what, 8 losses. If you go, a pair to each of the top teams, that's 6. And then another 2 losses somewhere. I mean, that's probably the super, super high end for them. Probably way too much. Maybe 19 and 9 is probably a realistic high for them. That's where I'll put my high end for them, at least. And then, plus or minus a couple. Well, not plus, minus a couple in there.
All right, I'm going to call it 17-11 because
that's more reasonable. Right. That's more reasonable.
I'm going to call them 16-12, which is their exact record from last year. I'm lowering every other team though, for the most part, like with a couple exceptions, obviously. So them holding steady with their actual win-loss record to me is improvement. The way my rankings and my record approximations are going to shake out. I do think they'll continue to be streaky and really momentum based. Less so than before though, right? So I don't expect to see a 2-5 stage from them, or even like a 5-match loss streak. It would probably be excessive. They are adding talent. They are really solidifying their roster. I believe that. So I'll give them the same record, but calling that a significant upgrade here. So
yeah, I think that's reasonable. I would still I would tack on a couple of wins there, one or 2 wins onto what you're saying. But yes, very optimistic about them.
I think we're talking about the same standings boost that they're going to get, but just different records. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, let's move on. Let's move on to the London Spitfire. You put the note here. They blew it up. I mean, we don't have to, but yes, we do. I'll run us through here. We've got we're just going to read out the brand new roster. A note here is that Glister will be 18 by the season start, so technically inactive
mid-January,
right now. Mid-January, so with the early February start, or I guess mid-February start, he will be good to go. So we've got Krillin in the support role, Bernard as a tank, Fuse as a support, Shui, as a DPS, J-Mac as a tank, Highly support, Sanguinar as a support, Babel DPS, Although DPS, Jihun and Cleston as tanks, with Glister as a DPS player. I'm not I was gonna say I'm not recognizing a whole heck of a lot of names from the season 1 inaugural season champion team here, Deathblow.
You're not wrong. Let's hear from Blackwatch Report. I got things to say.
So London Spitfire are almost entirely made up of new players. They picked
They
up
are
Bernard,
entirely.
Fuse, Shui, J-Mac, and Sanguinar, as well as
Okay.
Highly they took from Seoul Dynasty. Sanguinar is a player that no one knows much about. He is a main support player from Gen B, which is the Seoul Dynasty's like tier 3, tier 4 team. J-Mac is a main tank player from LG Huya. Don't know much about him. We don't watch too much Chinese contenders. Shui is a player from Runaway, flex DPS, pretty solid, pretty skilled. I think this is a pretty solid pickup. I don't think he's going to be an absolute world beater, but he could be pretty good. Then Fuse was the player who took over Elk's spot in Korea for Fusion University. Another solid main support player, very likely going to be starting over Sanguinar for that spot.
And then we've got Bernard coming off of Fusion University. Bernard, even when he was playing on high ping, looked phenomenal for Fusion University. I think that London got a really, really good tank player here. It should be interesting to see. I know he's got some pretty big shoes to fill because London had a really good tank prior to this, but I think Bernard's going to be able to step in there and fill those perfectly. And then coming off of currently inactive because he's too young, Glister, DPS coming off of Gen G. This is the player that I think me and Kyle both agree is the big steal here for London. You're looking at a Doomfist, Widowmaker, Hanzo. If we have the Doomfist meta, expect Glister to slot in as soon as he hits of age. Even with the hit scan, I could really see Glister just slotting in right away.
So almost
agree
as
with-
many unknowns as
I was gonna say, I agree with a lot of what they said, and I think Kyle was hysterical without trying to be, because like the big positive he could say was like, but he's like might be all right.
Yeah.
Talking about Shui, Thorne is also very correct about Bernard. He's a very good to great prospect. Whether that translates to Overwatch League is yet to be seen. He'll also constantly be underrated, underappreciated, and hated by the fan base because he's not Fury, and won't be Fury in talent. I don't think either. I mean, very good maybe in time, but not definitely not right away.
Right.
And then sure, Glister might be really good, but the rest of the roster's a mess. So I'll give them Glister, which I'm hesitant to do even straight out of the gate. And just what is the rest of this team? When your tier 2 show, your sister tier 2 show, doesn't know who these guys are, like what is this? What I don't understand. You're not Huck. You don't get to just do this. When it's Huck, we have to give it the benefit of the doubt. But we don't here, and I don't know. I hate this roster. They blew it up. They didn't. It's like they phoned in trying to replace the guys. Highly is a replacement player from Seoul who's fine, but again, he's now penciled in as your starter, along with Fuse. I don't know. The whole roster is top down disappointing. The players that are good are a shadow of what was there in their place. If Glister's best, I think he's a budget Prophet, and at Bernard's best, he's a budget Fury. How is this team possibly supposed to get better? And where were they even starting from last year? Not that it matters. 16-12, good for 7th place, won a spot.
None of these stats are even relevant.
Lost to New York and San
players.
Francisco first round and had no top 4 finishes in stage playoffs. So making changes, I get. Completely blowing it up didn't make sense. You won a championship a year ago. I'm not going to read the bad maps, the map percentages. I wrote them down. Check the map notes if you're curious, or over.gg is where I get them from. Check them out there. Shout outs to those guys. Really, really like that website. Helps us a lot over here. So So yeah, I mean, we're clearly not beating around the bush on this one. The roster looks rough. Blevins, do you have any faith that this team will have a Boston-esque surprise in store for me this season and just make me want to watch their games at all?
Ooh, you see, I was going to have something clever to say until you said this season. I think this is a season 4 team. This is a tryout season for London. Can they spike a decent season? Sure. We've seen it happen with
Tryout season, and that their fans are going to try out another team for a year.
Hey, that's the beauty of the location-based teams, is that if you are from London, if you are nope,
all right, Icarium's trapped, but
I'm not
everybody
going to make the inappropriate comment I was going to make. We're just gonna go ahead and we're gonna beep that whole section out. I think if I'm putting my tinfoil hat on, which I'm not putting it on, it's always on. London probably got, they had their profit gesture. They thought, let's just take our cash. Let's invest in some prospects. Let's invest in nothing but prospects. If you're going to get rid of the core, drop it all, right? They went for all or nothing, and they went by dropping it all, they now have nothing. Now, is there actually nothing? Probably not in terms of individual talent, which they can develop. Who is the leader of this team? Who excels? Who's the superstar? We don't know. Maybe they don't know. Maybe they're trying to use this season to find out. Build a franchise player. They had their profit. They had their gesture. Let's just, for all intents and purposes, they're gone, right? Whether it was London that decided to do that or if it was profit and gesture that decided to do that, irrelevant. They're gone now. So is this Glister's team? Is this someone else? We don't know. But I think this season for London Spitfire it's playing with house money. This season, done. Which, I mean, would I make the decision that my team building season is the first one where we have home games? I probably wouldn't make that decision as a GM or an owner, but it's not my team, right? I'm not the owner of Cloud9, so I don't have to make that decision. They made that decision, or they are, this is the scenario. Whether they made that decision is irrelevant. So I think, any success that they get is a free roll for them, and they want to develop. They want to find a core here, build that core. I would not be surprised if we saw some fat trimming, if we saw if we saw some moves mid-season, some acquisitions, some trades, some cuts. Get rid of the players that aren't working. Keep the core, build off the core, have a great team in season 4. And if you can get some success in season 3, that's great. But if I am the London Spitfire and if I was given the GM job of London Spitfire tomorrow, that's how I would approach this team right now.
Yeah, they wouldn't have left you with much choice. So you think they took the money from gesture and profit and spent it on the team? I hope they went to Vegas with it, because that's the only way they got their money's worth. If this is what they did with it, they didn't get their money's worth.
Sure. Well, I mean, I don't think they didn't necessarily spend all of their money either.
Sure. No, I get your point. I'm just basically making a joke.
Mm-hmm.
I'll also say it's just insane. They went from krilling it in season 1 to krilling themselves in season 3. It's brutal. I don't even want to do an anticipated record. How do you assume they're going to be? How many times do they play Florida? What do you got for a record for London here, bud?
I don't even have a funny voice today. I really just wanted to find a sound clip of me rolling dice, but
sad trombone.
Let's see. I think realistically, man, 8-20 is bad. I'll give them 10 and 18. I'll give them 10 and 18.
I'm giving them 8-20 because I think they're super bad. I hope I'm wrong, because I've said it before, even when it's the teams I don't like, except for Boston, I want them all to be better because the league's better when all the teams are better, except for Boston. League's at its best when you're winless. But Yeah, otherwise I don't want this to be true. I super hope I'm wrong, but you can't just fill a tier 3 team into Overwatch League, put Bernard in there with them and call it
Right.
anything.
Right.
It's going to be bad.
Yeah.
That's at least what I'm predicting. Hopefully, like I said, I'm wrong.
Yeah. I have a little bit brighter of a expectation for them, but not for any good reason. I just do. Yeah, I'll give them 10 and 18 for my official prediction. All right, let's move on to the final team here that we're going to be talking about today. That is the Seoul Dynasty, who have acquired from London Gesture and Profit, which we talked about quite a bit. They re-signed Toby and as well as signed Creative. They released Jexy. They traded Fleta to Shanghai, and they traded Hiley to London, who we just talked about. Death. How did they do last season?
Well, last season they were 15 and 13, which was good for the 8th seed. They got 3rd place in the Stage 1 playoffs. They won into the playoffs through the play-in bracket to get their 8th seed, and then lost to Vancouver and Hangzhou, and immediately eliminated. I was so right about them. It's crazy. They were one and done, like out as soon as possible in the playoffs. It didn't work out. Their plan, their whole methodology, it was backwards. It wasn't sports. It wasn't esports. It was Seoul, and it didn't work. There was a lot of talent there, and I think it was a bit of a missed opportunity. But I don't think they were really a championship roster either. So maybe it was in the back of their mind they were doing their tryout thing then. That's why they needed to rotate. I don't know. It's behind us. There's a new coach. There's only 8 players on this roster. I think it would be very difficult for them to repeat that kind of strategical approach.
They can only not play. Yeah, they can only flub it so much when there's only 2 additional players.
Yeah, so from that perspective, I'm really hoping they stay there. As far as maps in particular, they were 61% on hybrid, 57 for control, dead even 50% for assault, and 41% on escort. So payload's not kind to the Seoul Dynasty. Bad map specifically, 0% Junkertown, 33% Dorado, 40% Havana. Told you the escort was pretty bad. Anubis, 28%, Volskaya, 44, Lijiang Tower, 40, and Kings Row, 43. So there's ups, there's downs. Control's one of their better maps last season. That's great. It'll always be the tiebreaker. It'll always be the extra map 5, whatever, at least until push gets here. Can't come soon enough. Hate me some Control. So yeah, I think this is a team making big moves. Let's hear what Blackwatch Report has to say.
Seoul Dynasty called up one of their Gen G players. They called up Creative to fill out their flex support role. Nothing too flashy here. He looked pretty solid on Gen G. Gen G had a pretty good run through the regular season. Looked okay in the gauntlet. They're clearly a top-tier team. Creative was able to fill the role that he needed to fill. I think this is a middle-of-the-line pickup for the Seoul Dynasty here.
Yeah, completely agree with Thornrain across the board on that one. I talked about it before. You don't need every spot on your roster to be a killer, to be a pop-off game changer kind of a guy. Creative has big shoes to fill coming in for Jaehong, but more in name than talent to me. Jaehong was good. He was above average. He was a very good flex support player. He wasn't required for this team to maintain success, I don't think. They brought in Gesture. They brought in Profit. They did lose Fleta, which is unfortunate. But again, you bring in Profit. You've got your star power, right? There's not many players that could be an improvement to Fleta.
Yep. And they
Profit's
got one.
Yeah. So, and again, Gesture up there among the better main tanks in the league going into last year. We were talking about him as the unquestioned number 1. I love his flexibility there. If he can ever get back on Winston, he'll be even better. But they'll also still have Marvel, right? Or Marvy 1, however we're supposed to say.
Marvy 1, of course.
Marvy one. He's still there. So if there is a Reinhardt issue or if there's anything Gesture struggles on, he'll be able to get some relief if it's needed. I can't imagine it will be. I'm really, really high on this team, but Blevins, I'm curious, is this a legitimate championship Overwatch League Season 3 champion contender as you look at this roster right now?
Honestly, championship? Yes, I think they actually are in the mix. I think, we have Prophet and Gesture who literally have a championship. They have the notch on their belt. They have done it. They, if nothing else, I mean, their performances speak for themselves. They're both top 3 players at their positions in the league, at different points, or arguably top 1 at different points in positions. If the knock on Seoul last season was never, oh well, they just have a junk player in right now. They have they just are weak at this position. The knock was the position itself is weak because they keep playing a different player every week, and they keep playing a different group of players every week, and they're not gaining. You're not building anything. You're just playing a random roster every week. Like you said, with 8 players, they can't do that. And I mean, they could still, they can do whatever they want. They can still mess this up horribly. But, it makes us think that they're not going to do that. Maybe they did learn. Maybe the reason that they weren't playing, they were playing all their different, they were playing different DPS players every week was because they were trying them out to see who gets to stay, which now, like, when they pick up Prophet and Jester, it starts to make sense that maybe that's what they were doing. So I think if we take a look at the roster moves and we think, and we look back and go, oh, last season's weird play actually kind of makes sense for this season, then it's starting to look like a huge 5-head play. Maybe they were setting themselves up to be the team in season 3, and I think the talent's there. If we give them the benefit of the doubt, the team philosophy and the team building philosophy, the roster philosophy is there. And
replacing the head coach buys you benefit of the doubt.
Replacing the head coach, exactly. And we know that Seoul has one of the biggest fan bases in Overwatch League, which is going to be, they're going to have those home games, those home stands are going to be huge for them. They're also, like, if they already had huge fan bases, going home and getting that revival, like, it's hard to explain if you haven't done it before, but like when you play an away game and play a home game, it's obviously, even if you've never played traditional sports in your entire life, it makes sense that your home crowd is going to boost you while you're playing there. But not only that, playing away games and then coming back home, the homecoming, if you will, is a revitalization of the team in a way. It gives you your confidence back. If they start off rocky, you come home, you have those big home games, you have big performances, the crowd is going for you. It can bring you back up. There's more to the home games than meets the eye on paper. So, and Seoul being as popular of a team, and these players being as popular as they are, I think they might even get a bigger boost from the home atmosphere than other teams. So I think that they are a contender. They're going to have to overperform to be able to compete with the New Yorks, the San Franciscos, and the Vancouvers of the world, but they are there. They have on paper, they can do it. And I think some of the other factors, I'm very bullish on Seoul right now.
Yeah, on paper, I think I honestly would put them, just looking at the rosters, and this won't be where they are in my power rankings, but just looking at the rosters, throwing out past anything in a vacuum, I'd probably put them at number 2. I'm going to have doubts and questions because maybe the coach got fired because he didn't execute the plan that the owners wanted as
Right.
well as they wanted it done. And so it's his fault. Now we're going to find somebody else that can mismanage our team for us.
Right.
That you have to account for that. That's certainly possible. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt for now. Looking at it, what do you got for an expected or anticipated record in 2020?
Oh man, if I'm being bullish, what did I give? What did I give to Atlanta? 17. Did I give them 17 wins? 17 11.
I think I filled him out, so you should be able to.
Yeah, 17 and 11. I got them above. I think I'm at 19 and 9 for them. I think I'm 19 and 9, and I if they came out to an early start, I don't know where their home games line up in their season. I don't have it in front of me, but I could see them pulling off a 20-win season as well. So I'll put them at 19 and 9, but I almost want to give them that 20th win.
And now we finally understand why Blevins said 28-0 for New York 2 weeks ago, so that he couldn't accidentally rank Seoul higher than them.
Yes.
I do rank Seoul higher than them in my anticipated record. I think they're not by much. I'm giving them 18 and 10, but that's one game better than I gave New York. Let's see, where did I have Vancouver? I had the same record for Vancouver, so I got Vancouver coming down, Seoul jumping up to meet them. And 19 and 9 was where I put San Francisco. So I've got them right there. I think looking at the roster, I can see it. It makes sense. Everything, it's coming together. It looks great. So I'm very, very bullish on what Seoul's going to be able to do. If you are a fantasy player, you should listen to Foul Play once they start back up for the season, because I'm guessing they're going to be pretty bullish on what's going on here. Players like Profit are going to be very, very early picks. There's just it seems set up, and like you said, the home games are likely to give. I mean, you have to think Seoul, Korea is going to show up for an esports event better than Washington D.C. is going to, right? So I think that's going to be big for them as well. Though the only thing that I think could hurt them, and I don't even know that it's a problem because I don't have it open in front of me. There's a spreadsheet going around with how many miles the teams need to travel throughout the course of the year. If they're exceptionally high on that list, it's going to cost them wins. It's going to cost anybody that's high on that list wins. And we'll be talking about that in the preview after we do. This is all kind of vacuum stuff. What do we think of the teams, the roster? And then after all these are done, we're going to do a season overall, and we're going to be talking a lot about miles traveled and how the schedule breaks down. We're going to really need to look into that in depth, and then adjust from there. And then combine them both together, you'll get what my power rankings contest submission will be for season 3. But yeah, Seoul's all set up here to me, and I think if they for some reason don't auto qualify into the playoffs, if they're even limping in the play-ins, I think it's a massive disappointment and a massive underperformance for the roster. I really do have a lot of hope for this team. I think they're going to realize what they probably should have been from the beginning, which is the gold standard in this league.
Right.
And that's what they set for themselves. They literally chose the color gold.
True.
They named themselves the Dynasty. You need to live up to that now. You have the talent, and there's no more excuses. So play 6 people in 26 of your 28 games, the same 6. And I think they're going to be in a really, really good spot. And the roster is deep enough. I don't know that it matters which 6 they choose. But obviously, there's backups for Gesture, and Gesture should be there.
I was gonna say Profit, Gesture, X is going to be a pretty good lineup to run.
You hear that, London? That's a pretty good starting spot for a roster. What do you know?
What do you know?
Can you imagine if they had like Fury? And I would say, let's not even go. That's super team territory. Rip Bird Ring, the problem. But. Yeah. So, all right. Anyways, we finished bashing on London, and we finished praising Seoul here too. I think we reached the end of it.
One last question about Seoul.
Sure.
Are you higher on them now in proportionally? Are you higher on them pre-season 3 than you were on them pre-season 1?
can't be right because I put them number 1 maybe and going into season 1, and I don't have them
Probably.
there.
Almost everyone
So
did.
I can't say that I'm higher on them. But I'll say this: I feel more confident in where I'm ranking. Where I'm going to rank
Mhm.
them now. A lot of their ranking, and I'm trying to remember where the original core team came. It was Lunatic High, right? But they'd already
Lunatic High.
fallen off a little bit. Like Kongdu kind of caught them.
Yes.
Luxury Watch Blue was certainly a thing.
Yep.
So, man, no, because we really did think it was, Envious and Lunatic
Yes.
High were 1 and 2,
Yep.
or 1A and 1B sort of a situation.
Mhm.
So, no, can't say I'm as high on them as I am then, but I think I'm much more accurate now.
Well, I mean, I feel the same way where I'm like, well, we don't have them as the unanimous number 1, and I don't think anyone would put them as unanimous for some. Well, some people might rank them number 1, but I think if you ask enough people, they're going to come out probably 3 or 4 in the 3-4 range rather than
Power
the 1-2
rankings will
range.
be very
Yes.
kind to Soul, I think.
Yeah, but I think they'll be top 4, but I don't think they'll be 1-2.
Sure.
So yeah, very, very exciting to see them. They're one of my picks for like most improved, like best positioned in the preseason, like a lot of things there. A lot of things going well for
2
Seoul.
of the 3 that I think are in potential most improved territory
Mhm.
were on today's episode, and starting from a very high spot.
Yes.
Houston's another one. There's a lot of changes there,
Mhm.
so I think that it's in the range of outcomes. I'm just saying teams I think it's possible, right? I'm not even saying who I think will. Seoul, I think certainly will.
Yeah.
But yeah, Atlanta and Seoul, I'm very bullish on them. They had a really good year too, or
Mhm.
second season as a league. It was the first for Atlanta, and I love the direction they're heading at the moment, at
Mhm.
least. And man, makes me want to hop on the Atlanta train a little bit, just because if I really like the way the roster looks now, and I like the way they're approaching things every time they make a move, every time
Mhm.
they do anything, it seems smart to me. I get the logic, I get the reasoning. It's just both of these teams I think are primed for a phenomenal year. They're the ones that can topple San Francisco and
Yeah.
Vancouver and New York and kick them out of the elite. It's going to take, I think, one of those 2 teams to really do that.
Mhm. I almost pulled the trigger over the holiday on a Dogman alternate jersey because they were a lot of the jerseys were on sale. Yeah, I didn't. I ended up getting a a New York baseball alt ULT jersey because I need more New York stuff. I don't need more Atlanta stuff. It would have been a Dogman jersey, not an Atlanta jersey. But that's gonna be it, guys, for this. This is our second preseason episode. Yes, we've still got a couple more, at least a few more.
3 more.
We got 3 more preseason episodes like this, and then a full
Season
first
primer,
week,
basically.
a season primer. Yes, we've got that. So keep an eye and an ear.
And then week 1 preview.
Okay.
And then it'll be
week
1
regular.
Post. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so keep an eye and an ear out for that. But thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. Again, if there are any technical difficulties and sound, anything like that, let us know on Discord. You can specifically message me if you want. You can post it and tag us in the Discord, discord.me/highnoonpodcast if you're not already there. Make sure you follow there, and you can follow us pretty much anywhere on the internet, YouTube, Twitter, iTunes, Spotify, all those places. Just search for High Noon Podcast or at High Noon Podcast, whatever. We are there. We're also, as Deathblow mentioned at the top of the show, at patreon.com/High Noon Podcast. We do have a lot of stuff that all support is going to greatly help us as we are trying to improve the quality of the show overall, at least in terms of production, content.
Find us on YouTube. I'm gonna use it.
We can't improve your support can't improve our content, but if you're still here after all these years, maybe you don't care.
It can improve the quantity.
Yes, that is something. It's the American way.
Quantity,
to just
not
consume
quality, has
more.
been our motto for 192 episodes.
That is true. But what is also true is that is the end of the show. Thank you, everyone, for listening again. Yeah, it feels like it's been forever since we've had a show, but it's really only been 2 weeks. Guys, thanks. I'll thank you guys a third time. Thanks again for listening. For Deathblow, I am the Blevins. And remember, guys, it's happening?
Got his boots and he put on his hat. He threw the coin away that same day. It's in his past and he's not looking back. He says, finding mine now, God's my way. He's not good, but he sure ain't bad. He'll make amends for the sins that he has. He says, I'll change the world one bullet at a time till I find mine.
Hey guys, no troll at the end. Just go to the Discord and just give at Kyle Wynn and at Thornwayne a thumbs up, because they did a good job with the little breakdowns. Those were great. See you guys next week. Ooh, okay, stream, chat, thank you all for listening. I gotta go. Deathblow already went. I'm gonna be there